I had a conversation with Abraham about maybe 8 months ago, phone consultation, in which I addressed the issue of seizures. I hadn't had a seizure in a long time, and I guess I was needing some clarification because I had some doubts. Hadn't had a seizure in 4 years, and part of what Abraham said at the time was that that in view of what I was now aware of, and I guess what he meant there, as far as the Abraham material was concerned, that they didn't see that happening. At least that's the way I interpret what they said. 2 months ago I had a seizure. This week I had 2 seizures. I'm confused. I'm not sure how to look at this experience, you know. I don't know if you remember the conversation or what you said then.
We don't spend too much time remembering anything from before, because anything that was before was about whatever the vibration was before.
Okay.
And the greatest value that we have as we interact with you is to assess where your vibration is in any moment.
Okay.
Now, we are very pleased that so early in our interaction you bring forth such a significant topic, because the topic that you bring forth is the topic that we are here to talk about here today. And that is, what is it that I might be doing that is causing resistance of the stream? Now, I want to give you some basis for understanding, and then we think you will find great clarification here. See a fire hose, and someone has put a nozzle on the end of the fire hose, not allowing the water to spray out. But the pressure is still coming from the source. So this fire hose is getting all fat and tense and swollen. Now see somebody open the end of the fire hose, and as the water is allowed to spray out, as it flows naturally from its source through the hose and right on out, you can visibly see this big fat tense swollen fire hose soften and relax. Now, the key words that we're wanting you to focus upon are release or relax or relief, because the energy that flows to you is wanting to flow through you. In other words, when your source energy is allowed to flow, when there is no resistance, then the sensation is one of ecstasy. The sensation is one of clarity. The sensation is one of security. The sensation is one of well-being. It ranges from peacefulness to passion, but it feels good. There's an ease about it. Where when there is resistance, you feel the tension that you might describe in many negative terms, such as fear or anger or frustration or guilt. Can you not feel the tension in negative emotion? So, now I want to give you another piece to this, because this is the part you are looking for, and we've given it to you before, but we think you will hear it now with greater certainty. See a car going down the road at 100 miles an hour, and this car hits a tree right in the middle of the road. Big problem. 2 factors involved in the problem. One is the velocity of the car, the other is a tree standing there. If either of those factors were different, it would be a very different outcome. If the car were only going 5 miles an hour, even if it hit the tree, it would not be a problem. And at 5 miles an hour, this car could avoid the tree. Or if the tree were not there at all, the car could go 200 miles an hour or more, and there would not be a problem. Now, what we want you to hear from this is that when you clarify your desire, that is the same as speeding up the car. When you speed up the car, the resistance that has been there all along is now more hindering. What most people do when they start banging into trees is they slow the car down. It's the obvious instinct. And when you slow the car down, your life feels a little smoother. At least you're not banging into so many trees. But it gets boring in time. So what we notice is that Some of you were born with your car going faster than most. In other words, some of you were born with your car going about 1,000 miles an hour. You had stronger wanting to achieve in this physical experience, to explore in this physical experience, to experience in this physical experience. Your passion for life, being the teacher that you are, was heightened beyond almost anybody that you meet. So when you, with your car going very fast, were born into this environment with lots of trees, you began banging into trees. Now that is the recipe for someone who will later or early be labeled as one who has seizures. In other words, there's a resistance that you've learned from your observation of your environment that is so contrary to the knowing of well-being that is within you that it simply causes short-circuiting. Now, many people deal with seizures. Whether it is a physical seizure of the nature that you're describing, or whether it is the seizure that is more commonplace of as you say, falling apart or flipping out or losing your cool, or in other words, there are all sorts of dramatic evidence of feeling that powerful blockage of the energy flowing. Some deal with it better than others because their wanting was not so strong to begin with, or because they are living in an environment that is able to suppress their wanting. In other words, watch the children. A little child born full of adventure and desire, eager and rambunctious and annoying to most adults. And watch the process as the adults work very hard at suppressing the innate passion that is within this child, as they say, that is inappropriate, 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 until in time most children will just slow down their wanting so that they can find some sort of balance. All of them don't do that, however. In other words, some have been born with such a powerful passion to help others understand that the work is not to slow down the wanting, the work is to lower the level of resistance. Every now and again, someone will say to us, Abraham, is it normal for all hell to break loose in one's life when they start doing Abraham work? And we say yes. Because the first thing we encourage you to do is clarify your wanting. And when you become clear about what you want, when that desire begins to flow through you, the resistance that is within you that you weren't even aware was there is heightened to the point that you cannot ignore it. Envision someone breaking their ankle, and in the moment of the injury there is excruciating pain. Now what is actually taking place is that in the moment of the injury, the cells in that part of the body begin requesting life force. And life force is always easily summoned by the non-resistant cells. In other words, the cells ask, the energy flows. So as the energy flow is answered, it's like the car going 1,000 miles an hour again. And now this person who just a moment ago had the same resistance, or nearly so, that they have now, is feeling excruciating pain because now the energy is flowing faster under the same conditions of resistance. The resistance now is painful because of the faster speed of the energy. The thing we want you to hear is, all of you are full of resistance. You've been taught the resistance. When somebody says to you, things are hard, that's resistance. Yeah. When somebody says to you, life is not good, that's resistance. When somebody says, look over there, there's suffering, that causes you to vibrate in resistance. When somebody says, we understand why you cannot hear it as easily as we want you to hear it, because every now and again, recently especially, we've been asking those in group sessions, which would you rather feel if you had your choice between these two emotions? Would you rather feel anger or fear? And everyone sort of shudders. These are terrible choices that we've given them. But usually, rather quickly, most conclude, well, I would rather feel anger than fear if I had the choice. Because it feels like more control. Anger is sort of being in control. Fear is sort of vulnerable, more vulnerable feeling. Then we say, which would you rather feel? Blame or guilt? And Again, they are terrible choices, we admit. But most say, well, I would rather feel blame than guilt. It feels more in control again. It is offering rather than receiving so much. And we say, the thing we really want you to hear is that while you admit in this environment that those are terrible choices, this is the sort of framework within which most people live. In other words, as they are observing conditions and evaluating them and judging them and coming to conclusions about them and making their decisions about what they will do next, almost every decision that they come upon is one that's full of resistance. In other words, let's say you're driving in traffic and the traffic is bogged down and you have some place you really want to be, but the traffic is not flowing the way you want it to. So you feel tension. Now the reason you feel tension is because you are full of resistance, because you are in this moment focused upon not being on time or focused upon your employer being angry at you because this is not the first time that it's happened, or you're focused upon missing your appointment, or you're focused upon things you do not want, which makes you resistant to what you do want. And so the negative emotion is resistance. But then what most of you say is, I wish this city would get some freeway systems that would work for us better, which is blame, which is full of resistance. Or you say, if people would just slow down to the speed limit and everybody would drive the same general speed, we would all blend much more easily and there wouldn't be all this stop and go and then there wouldn't be all of these acts. Blame, it is more resistance. Or you say, I should have left earlier. Guilt or self-blame, which is more resistance. Or you say, if my maid had just not taken so long in the bathroom, I'd have been out of here sooner. More blame, more resistance. In other words, almost everything that most of you would be thinking under those conditions would not be reducing your level of resistance, but adding to it. So then, what we notice is that most physical beings, every single day of their lives become just a little bit more resistant than they were the day before. That's why as they get older, which is natural and wonderful, they decline, they get ornerier, they get less adventurous, they have less fun, because each day they add to the resistance.